think Issa Rae actually said this, was a lot of us look for inspiration up versus across. People next to you probably have the skill that you need. You know, your friend, your sister, your friend of your sister probably has a skill set, but you're looking up there, you're looking at the influencer, and they have this Emmy-winning producer and da-da-da-da-da.
You're listening and watching Stuck in Middle Podcast. This is a platform for entrepreneurs, innovators, creatives of African descent. We hear stories, ideas, and experiences on how we can break the mold, how we can break barriers. We've been doing this for over 2 years now. Oh, man, it's been a crazy, incredible journey. We appreciate everybody who supports us in every way. If you want to support us, the best way you can do it is go on our website, sitmpodcast.com/store. You shop Stuck in Middle Podcast merch. That's how we are able to drive this machine. Also want to remind you this particular episode has been sponsored by Perfect Office Solution. They provide office space in over 7 locations for entrepreneurs in the DMV area. So hit them up. Let them know we sent you. Use promo code SITM Podcast. You get 10% off your monthly lease. That's Perfect Office Solution. Get a professional, flexible office space. You heard? Listen, I got a special guest in the building. I'm excited for this. Shout out to Sir Charles, man. He wanted to be here so bad. This is his like high school buddy, high school friend. I don't know, buddy. I don't know what your relationship is like, but he talked you up. So we're gonna get into it. But I got the pleasure of sitting next to him beside African Queen. She is a published writer, the founder of AfroKlash, a conference and community series for women, by women, for a unique clashing of minds in a fun, insightful, and safe space. Welcome.
Hi.
Omobosola Olabisi, the Stuck in Middle Podcast.
We practiced that. We practiced that. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate
you for coming through.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Charles.
Yes, so
my high school homie.
Yes, so
yeah. Thank you.
I want to break the ice like this, right? You said the importance of having a personal. You said, what is the importance of having a personal, personality behind your brand?
So it's crazy because it's actually something I really wasn't that familiar with, but at our first event, one of the speakers, Halima, she owns the Floral Guru, so she talked about that, and I think she was saying the importance of having is people feel like they can relate to you, but if they don't know who's behind what's going on, it's just somebody saying, we are doing this, but there's no face to it. People don't buy into it. But if they know, okay, I can relate to her, she looks like me, or she has the same struggles as me, or they feel like they're buying from you personally versus just some machine, they're more likely to buy into your brand. So I think it's important just because you want people to know. I think vulnerability and authenticity is what's selling. That's why that's to be successful in entrepreneurship, they need that authenticity from you. So I think that's the key about having a personality. If people just feel like they're buying from another person, everybody has something, everybody has a brand, everybody has a business. So what makes you stand out is your personality. What makes you stand out is your why.
What's an example of like having a personality? Is it like going out and touching the people, or like how you post, Yeah,
I think so for example, I think even as simple as like Instagram, if you post your face sometimes on stories or on your page to say I'm the one running this brand, maybe I have a team of 2, just so they know who's behind the brand. Like for AfroKlash, nobody has to know that I'm the one doing it. I can just post that we're having this event, post the speakers, but just putting your face out there that this is why I'm doing it, and people say, okay, I don't know her personally, but she has this idea and she has this dream, I'm just gonna go support her. People are more, so I heard a lot of that at the first event, I just heard about you, you were a nice person. A lot of people didn't even come maybe because they necessarily wanted to, but because either somebody knew of me, like even with this, if Charles didn't have a good recommendation for me, I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So your personality sells you before you even walk into any room. What people have to say about you is what pushes your business, ahead, or it's what sets you apart from everybody else kind of doing the same thing. If we're all selling a white t-shirt, what's the difference between your white t-shirt and my white t-shirt? It's who's selling it.
Right, yeah.
So
that's like, even I think about like Ride of Rage and Summer Walker, and the whole like introvert thing.
Exactly, yeah.
I was just having a conversation with another artist yesterday about him being an introvert and how that just having a personality helps.
Exactly, and it's crazy. People are really going on her now. It's why are you going? I was just listening to another podcast last week, and they were saying, with that personality, why go on tour at all? But it's important for her to put herself out there. That's what makes people buy into her business. So she's losing supporters now because they feel like her personality isn't what they want it to be. So that's why it's so important. They were also talking about how back in the day with celebrities, you don't know anything about them, but now I feel like it's a requirement for you to have a personality on Instagram.
Facts.
To be an influencer or whatever, because that's how you sell your product. That's how you sell who you are. So it's all part of marketing.
Speaking of personality and who you are, who is Bosola? See, listen. I have to cut this name short.
I told you to cut it short. Bosola.
Bosola.
Yeah,
Who's Bosola? For those who are unfamiliar, for those who don't know you, who is Bosola?
Oh my God, that's such an interview question. You start sweating. Like, I don't know how to answer this. I don't. You know, it's a journey. I feel like I'm still figuring it out. I really don't have like a one answer of this is who I am. I like doing so many things. I like so many different things. So I can't just say I'm this one thing. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a writer. So I'm so many different things. So it's hard for me to just say I'm this one thing because I like so many things. I love to be a part of so many things. So I don't really know how people answer that question perfectly. So I would just say I'm many different things and I'm still figuring it out, I guess.
You're the founder of AfroKlash.
Yeah.
Spelled with a K. First of all, why the K?
So funny enough, I was listening to oh my God, what is this part? How I built this podcast with Guy Raz.
Guy Raz, yeah.
So one of the episodes was with the founder of Spanx, and so she was saying on her episode that she read some research when she was coming up that if you're starting a business, having a sound K makes it sell more. I don't know where she found that research. So
Stuck in the middle. Stuck. It's not stuck. The K is 1K, not 3.
Stuck. You know, it has a C and a K. It has a so even when the name literally came to me and the entire idea came to me just one night in bed. So, you know, I feel like the K just made it look a little different than with the C because you know that's how it's spelled. So it just I don't know, the idea just popped into my head to make it with the K. But as far as the sound, I knew I wanted a K sound just because I heard it from Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
But who influences you?
Oh God. These days a big one is Issa Rae. She's my Capricorn sister. She's just amazing. I feel like she doesn't feel like she's one of those, like, I feel like if you had to ask her who she is, she's doing so many different things now. You know, she's in movies and TV. Yeah. She has a radio station. She just she's in real estate. She has this business in Cali now. So she doesn't
record label.
You know, she's just doing all of these amazing things. So she's someone that I look up to because she embodies the idea that you don't have to be one thing. You can be whoever you want as long as you're authentic and you go for it. So she's somebody that I always, you know.
What is AfroKlash?
So AfroKlash is a conference series, really. That's how it's starting out, just for women to come together and talk about things that we don't usually talk about. So even for me personally, how it kind of started off was, you know, every time I go over to my girlfriend's house, a group of us would just be sitting and chatting and talking about whatever we want to talk about. So there are a lot, even like, because even in this 2019, everybody wants to start a business, everybody kind of wants to do something, but a lot of us still have questions on the how do I monetize it, who would I reach, you know, they have so many different questions. So why don't we just all get into a room and ask those questions about how to be better, especially as women. You know, we have it a little harder in society already, so the greatest way for us to improve is by working together. So even for this one, a lot of the people that I looked up to, they weren't accessible to me. I wasn't even, there's a lot of conference series. There's a lot of conference series, but they're not necessarily people that I feel like I relate to. You know, that doesn't take away from the things that they do, but, you know, if your dad gave you $20,000 to start your business, you know, that doesn't relate to my personal story. It doesn't tell me how to start from the beginning. Do you know what I mean? So it was a combination of that. Wanting to give people that don't have, because I feel like there's so many, especially African women, doing amazing things.
Facts.
They're not always called to these kind of conference series to speak about how and their whys and things like that. And so a lot of people wanted to hear from them, but they don't necessarily have access to those people. So that was kind of the idea, because it's something that I wanted personally. So I feel like that's always the best way to start something that you want to do. You have to personally want that thing. You have to personally believe in your idea. And so that was kind of how it started. And so yeah, it's just a safe space for people to come together. So the idea right now is to do it based on like different themes. So we had the first event this October, which was pretty successful. It was all about, you know, starting a business and personal branding, because that's such a big thing. You know, it's I feel like nobody can really say that they can live off of just their 9-to-5 anymore. You know, it's becoming crazy out here.
Facts.
Everybody needs a side hustle. So, you know, we had amazing speakers. We had Nife Simi Akimbe, who's like a blogger, and we had, you know, Lola Kikwawa. We had the Floral Guru, Master Plan Events, and they're all local women. And a lot of them, they had never met each other before. And it's like, we're all here doing amazing things. So it was even amazing to see, because they all became friends. A lot of them didn't know each other, and now they're all good friends because they had that space and they shared that space together. So it was a pretty good event. And then so next year I'm already started to plan the next event, and that's going to be focused on money and kind of, how to negotiate salaries, how to make more money, how to be smarter about saving and investing and budgeting and things like that. It's something that I think is really important, especially as women, and a lot of us are not raised to talk about money. Even till this day, a lot of my friends, I don't know what they do. I don't know how much they make because we just don't talk about it. It's such an uncomfortable conversation. So it's something that I wanted to talk more about, because if somebody that does the same thing is making 20,000 more than you would know that if you had asked, but you don't ask, so you don't know. So we need to become more comfortable, asking those kind of questions.
I think is the embodiment of why this platform Stuck in Middle was created.
Yeah.
80 or 75% of our guests are women.
Yeah.
Women are killing it in their various, creative fields,
Sure.
entrepreneurship and things like that.
Yeah.
But people knowing of you or your story, what I'm saying? Like, there's so many people want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we've created this platform and say, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. Or if that's what she's doing, that's the path and things like that. So it's just, I like it.
Yeah, no, I like it.
What's the format? You know what I'm saying? Like when you got together in this past October, what's the format? Like, is it just we discussing, or or the speaker speak, questions and answer? What's the format of
So for this event, it was a panel session. So there were two different panels. One was focusing on how to become a blogger, influencer, starting your business. The other one was how to leverage social media to build your business. So there was three speakers and one moderator per panel, and then after each panel there was a Q&A session, and there were little activities for the panelists to speak to each other, and for the audience to speak to each other and mingle. But for the most part, it was a panel session, and then the panelists kind of shared their thoughts about how they started their businesses, and people got to ask them questions. And even after, we had some time after the event, so people that came walked up to whoever they looked up to and got to ask them questions.
Why is it that when like sisters do things like AfroKlash?
Yeah.
First of all, is this safe and fair to say this is a women empowerment platform?
Yes, it is a women empowerment, but I think what makes it different is not just for entrepreneurs. It's not just about starting a business. So that's kind of what makes it. But yeah, I would say it is about empowering women in different areas and different topics.
So why, are we not including the brothers? We're starting this thing. It's always like, oh, I'm a sister. I know. So I'm gonna start something for the sisters.
I know it's. I think just because
we need to be in this conversation.
But it's true. Men do need, because I was I think Yvonne Orji, somebody posted an article recently about how many safe spaces women have now, and I think it's just because for so long women didn't have that, so it's becoming such a trend for women to create those spaces. But I think for men it's because I ask people, guys that I know, and I ask them, when you're around your friends, do you guys talk about like serious deep stuff, know?
Yeah, a
lot, so well, I feel like for us, I think if you're in a room, I think it's natural with men and women, if you're talking about serious stuff, it's just natural for girls to not really say what they mean, or even for guys, because you're kind of performing. Maybe it's someone in the room you like or you have a crush on, you're gonna perform. You're not really gonna say you're not gonna be vulnerable. You're not gonna feel like you can just relax and be comfortable. So I think that's why there's a little separation of the genders, just because you want it to, not that it's not a safe space with men in there, but it's easier, more comfortable to have honest conversations if you feel like you're talking to your sister or your best friend, versus like having guys in the room that you feel like you have to impress.
You mentioned there being a surge in like safe space for women recently. What makes AfroKlash different from other safe spaces for women that
so I said it earlier, so this is not just for entrepreneurs, so that's a huge thing. There's women entrepreneurship businesses, so we're not just going to talk about how to start business, mental health and money, relationships, pressures, different kind of things. So it's not just about that. So that's one of the main things. And then one of the biggest things is the speakers that are coming, they've not necessarily had this platform before. So that's kind of what makes it different, because a lot of these events that I go to personally, and I see it's a lot of the same speakers, kind of telling the same stories over and over and over and over again. So it brings a new dynamic. It brings different conversations that kind of have not been had before, specifically for African women.
Yeah, you Nigerian?
Yeah, I'm Nigerian.
Born here? Or?
Born here. I lived in Nigeria for 9 years and came back here in 2007.
How many siblings do you have?
I have two sisters, one older, one younger.
Where your parents at? They here or back home?
No, they're back home.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Howard University for undergrad, English major, and then I went to the University of Maryland College Park.
I studied English too.
Did you?
That's because I hated math.
I still hate math to this day. I hate math. You cannot ask me to multiply, divide, anything. I just cannot.
But you gotta count the money. Nigerian people.
You know,
Nigerian
people. We thought.
You married?
No, I'm not married. No.
Oh, okay. You going to Nigeria this December a lot? It's like, everybody's going home.
December.
Dirty December. Let me find out.
I don't know who started that. I don't know who started that trend, but that's what people call it when everybody comes home in December. Is it Dirty December? Dirty December? I don't know.
Nigerian people. We're not going to carry last this December. Ghana is what it's like now.
Nah, Cardi B has shown out for us. We won 2019 already. We won 2019 off of that.
I bet we're going to Rwanda. If you were not doing AfroKlash, what would you be doing with your life?
I would be writing. If I could, I would be writing full time. Yeah.
You're a published writer. Mm-hmm. Is that blogging or?
So I have a couple articles published. So I used to write like back in like secondary school, high school. I would just write for fun. Then when I went to college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I just kind of stopped writing, and I just got so insecure. Like, cause I've always known that writing was something that I love to do. But being raised African, nobody kind of tells you. You don't have anyone to say, oh, you could do this. Everyone, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. So I went into, so I went into college. My plan was to be a lawyer. That was my dad. Well, let me say my dad's plan was for me to be a lawyer. So, I went in there, I got literally my senior year. I had no plans. Everybody else had like 20 internships under their belt. Everybody was doing things. I kind of was just winging it, going to class, registering, going to class, not really knowing where I was going. So my senior year, literally, I was like, okay, I don't know. Should I apply for journalism jobs? But they weren't paying, especially when you're starting out as a writer, you don't have that much experience. You don't make that much money. Was I going to move to New York? So I really didn't know what I was going to do, but so I kind of gave it up for like a while. I just didn't write. I got a full-time job right after undergrad, working in education, and so I just stopped writing. So this year actually was the first time I actually read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but it was so amazing. So that was actually the first piece I wrote in about 6 years, and it got published. And I wrote 2 more pieces after that, and they both got published as well. And then once AfroKlash started, I haven't had the time, but it's something that really makes me happy, just putting words on paper, seeing my words resonate with other people that I don't know. So if I could do that, and not have to think about any consequences or anything like that, I would definitely be a writer.
Is AfroKlash your full time, or what do you do?
No, I work at a university in DC. I work in education and enrollment services. I've worked in education my entire professional career. So my master's degree was actually in international education policy. So that's another of my passions, is just trying to figure out like why countries like Nigeria, we can't afford to send our kids to school the way people can get financial aid and things like that here. What are the rules and regulations behind the education systems? Are there rules and regulations? A lot of these schools have been in existence for years. Nobody knows how it runs. Nobody knows where the money goes. So just trying to understand the policies behind different education systems is also a big passion of mine, and empowering kids to go to school in developing countries. So something I did last year was raise some money in partnership with a friend of mine, Jennifer. She has this amazing organization, Give Back Nigeria. For kids, and so I raised I did a campaign for my birthday last year, and I raised about $1,500 and so they were able to like donate some education supplies to kids, and we threw them a Christmas party last year. So something I'm passionate about as well, just as far as educating people, because I think the more educated people are in a country, the better the country is. I think that's dope and so true. You speak a lot about, let me ask you this, what has been your toughest moment in building your brand, whether it's AfroKlash or yourself, and how did you overcome that time? I'm the hardest on myself. So I'm my biggest critic. So that has been the hardest part, getting out of my own head to actually do the things that I know that I can do has been the hardest part. And this because I've done so much with writing and AfroKlash, really putting myself out there. So overcoming my inner voice that says, you probably couldn't do it, or you're probably not that good enough, that kind of imposter syndrome type of stuff. So that has been the hardest part, is getting out of my own head, because people don't talk about how hard that is. Of course it's hard to put something out, but convincing yourself to do something, if you're not as confident about it, or if you're unsure, it's the hardest part. So that has been the hardest part, and I feel like I've learned so much this year, as far as vulnerability and just putting yourself out there. So yeah.
At the end of every conference, or at the end of this October conference, what's the one thing that you want the attendees and the speakers, or even yourself, to leave remembering or thinking about?
You're not alone. If you have an idea, if you're insecure about doing something, you're not alone. I don't want people to come and think that everybody on stage is perfect. So even that day, there was no blinders. Everybody was so honest about how hard the journey has been. Just because you want to be a blogger, you may not be able to make it a full-time position in a year. You have to actually put the work in. So I want people to leave knowing the truth, and don't just look at people on Instagram and think, I could do that, it's so amazing, I'm going to live this glamorous life. But there's actually a journey to it. Nifesimi said something amazing that day. It takes patience to be successful. Just because you see people on Instagram now with 100,000 followers, it could have taken some of them 10 years, 5 years to get there, but you're seeing the finished product. So even with AfroKlash, people can't come in, you see the finished product, you see the pretty room and the speakers. So even just sharing that, it hasn't been an easy journey getting here. The speakers shared all of that and all their struggles. So I want people to leave knowing that it's a journey, and also that maybe the person next to you is trying to start the same thing. You could get a business partner. So leaving knowing that there's sisters and there's friends that they can talk to about stuff. It's kind of the main thing for me. What
is the Young Women's Leadership Council you're a member of?
Oh, you did your research.
We don't play around here. What do you mean?
God. So I joined that last year. God, it's been so I haven't even had time to be a part of it. But the Young Women's Leadership Council, so it's part of the YWCA in DC. So they kind of so I was part of the advocacy committee. So it's just about empowering young women, like high school, middle school kids in the area. So something that we were trying to do last year was we mentor little girls, and we talk to them about any struggles that they're going through. A big thing that they do every year is they have a financial summit for women. So they talk about budgeting, and they talk about if you want to buy a house, building side hustles. So it's just about the core of it is mentoring little girls that in the DC, Maryland area. But they do a lot of stuff for the members and other women in society. But yeah.
If you were to advise, like a young lady, trying to, navigate this life in STEM, whatever field, what advice would you give them, and what resource do you think, women are lacking to be, as successful as they can and should be?
I think the first thing is believe in yourself. If you have an idea, or just because you see somebody else doing it just doesn't mean that you can do it, because that's something I hear a lot. Even like somebody wants to start a podcast, 20 people already have a podcast, I can do it. So first, believe in yourself. If you have an idea, believe in it. And then the second thing was, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid of your lack of knowledge or your lack of skill. Talking to other people will get you the answer that you need. So don't just sit in your head, I can't do it, I don't know how to edit, I don't know where to buy equipment, I don't know what type of equipment I need. But if you ask, you get to the end product quicker. So that would be one of my biggest advice. You have resources all around you. And something I think Issa Rae actually said this was, a lot of us look for inspiration up versus across. People next to you probably have the skill that you need. Your friend, your sister, your friend of your sister probably has a skill set, but you're looking up there, you're looking at the influencer, and they have this Emmy-winning producer and da-da-da-da-da. But you could have a friend he's also trying to come up, and he could be a producer. So look next to you. People in your community could have the resources that you need, and the help that you need, and the advice that you need. So don't be afraid to put your voice out there. Don't be afraid to tell people your ideas. I know it's scary, because what if they take my idea? But that's something that I've learned, and that I would tell other people when trying to start something.
Yo, that threw me off. I'm all like, I gotta catch myself now. I was so much invested in that quote. I'm trying to type it right now to AK, like, bro, 23 minutes and 32 seconds. That's deep.
Yeah, something that I remind myself of every day. Yeah.
What's the one comment? I know you mentioned earlier, the next event You probably don't have the date yet, but you know, look out for that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the theme of the next event, but what's the one conversation right now that women, I don't know, are having but need to have more or aren't having?
Money is really is one of the biggest ones, because we're I think with the age that I am, you know, in the age group that we are, a lot of us we're getting to that point where your 9 to 5 is not enough. So how can I make more money? Everybody's trying to buy a house now. People are planning for weddings, but then you get to that point, you realize I only have $2,000, $3,000, and somebody's telling you need $20,000. How do you then you have that one friend who's doing amazing and has $50,000 in savings, but that person probably could have advised you if you had just asked, you know. So I think money is a really, really big one to get us to the next level. Even for me, you know, I'm not really I was an English major. I don't care about numbers and money, but it's something that I've had to be more smart about, because, you know, things happen. People lose their jobs every day. Do you have something to fall back on? You know, investing is still a myth to me. I don't know how people get into investing. I'm really not that good at it, but it's something that I'm learning. I go to so many conferences just to learn how to invest my money. And, you know, people say you just make your money work for you. You know, your money just sitting in your bank account, you're working every day, then at the end of the year you don't have anything in savings, but you've been working for 12 months in the year. You know, that doesn't make any sense. So I think money is the biggest one. I think another one that people talk about a lot now is mental health. You know, making sure that, because especially in the African culture, you know, you can never say, "Mommy, I'm depressed." Depressed?
Are you mad?
Are you mad? What do you mean? My friend passed it down. You know, so I think that's a huge one. A lot of people, so they're not necessarily depressed, but, you know, a lot of us have anxiety, you know, especially now when so many people feel like they can do other things, but your parents and your society is telling you have to do something specific. So much anxiety is wrapped up in that, because there's like, you're like, but I feel like I could be a singer, but everyone's like, you can't make any money being a singer. You could probably, how about you just go be a doctor? You know, so there's so much wrapped up in that, and trying to break all of those expectations and go through that. So mental health is a big one these days. I feel like with pressure and just trying to get out of your head, and, you know, going to therapy. A lot of people talk about that now, and so yeah.
How can, you know, us as men, you know, help, I don't know if that's the right word, with this, you know, women empowerment, safe spaces and safe havens and things like that? If we can't be in the rooms, which that's fine, how can we help, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, our sisters, our women, you know, and everything? I think first is self-awareness. So even without having to go to a woman and be like, how can I help? Check yourself first. Like, I feel like a lot of people, you know, especially African men, you know, we're raised, it's a patriarchal society. So you may not even realize the biases that you have. You just don't even know until one day somebody checks and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even know I thought that. I didn't know that I thought that women can't do that thing that I want to do, until you're put in that position. So I think the first part is checking your own biases and seeing, you know, what it is that you might have against women that you don't even know that you believe that, but because maybe your dad or your mom or your uncle taught you that, you actually do believe those things. So I think that's the first part of it. And the second part of it is, don't be afraid to have this conversation. Don't be afraid to be checked by your friend. Don't feel like, oh, she's a girl, she can't talk to me like that. You know, or especially like for guys, if you have little sisters, don't be afraid to talk to them about, you know, what are you going through, and, you know, give them mentors if you have female friends. So don't run away from those conversations, you know, because you see that a lot, you know, with guys, like, you know, that has nothing to do with me. I'm just going to go over here, let them have their little female conversations. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable around those conversations, because the more you have those conversations, it makes you more comfortable. It opens your mind to see what other women experience and what women go through. So it's not so even though it seems like, you know, women have these safe spaces that men are not invited to, but it's that safe space for a reason. So don't be intimidated by not being invited to the space, but kind of like you said, like, how could you help? And that's just by talking to them about, you know, what is it that you're going through that maybe you feel like I can't relate to, and that kind of opens the conversation. Shouldn't do this, but how old are you?
26.
Your DMs open?
Yeah, I guess.
Brothers, I got tell you something. This is a sister right here that she wants to be in contact with.
Oh,
you understand?
Stop.
She's going to Nigeria next. I don't want to put your business out there. Soon.
Sometime.
Don't let her come back with husband. Okay, I said my own. What's the one accomplishment that you're most proud of?
Oh man. So it's hard for me because I'm so hard on myself. So sometimes when I accomplish something, I don't even see how big it is. So even with AfroKlash, and people come up to me like, oh my God, that was so amazing. This is what I took away from it. And I was like, really? You think so? I don't know. I didn't see. You know, I'm so critical. So it's hard for me. But this year, actually, one of the articles I published was Nipsey Hussle, about his passing. And so I literally, because that really affected me. I didn't know anything about him before then, so it really affected me more than I did. And I wrote this piece in probably less than an hour, put it out there, it got published, and probably 9,000 people read the article, and so many people were sharing it on social media.
What was the title?
Oh my gosh! See, now
where's it published at?
It's on Blavity. It's I was thinking about this yesterday. Nipsey
on Blavity, Omobosola Olabisi.
Yeah.
Go search it up.
That's not mine. I think it's why Nipsey Hussle affected a non-fan like me, something like that. Yeah, why Nipsey Hussle's death affected a non-fan like me.
Omobosola Olabisi.
We are gonna work on this offline, and we will get better at them. But yeah, so that was a huge one for me, just because I really didn't even think it was that big of a deal, just because I was so surprised by how moved I was by his death. So I just put out the article, and there were so many comments, and people kept saying, oh my god, I feel like I wrote this article, I really related to this. So that was one of the biggest things for me. I was so happy to see how many people related to my words, because sometimes you think you're just the only person thinking something, but so many people came back and were like, oh my god, I felt the same thing. I had really never listened to a Nipsey Hussle song. I knew nothing about him before that, but I was so sad by his death. And so as the days went on after everything that happened, you just saw the way people talked about him. And so even from that, it taught me so much about the importance of legacy, and stop focusing on, of course, money is important, and being successful is important, but when you die, people are not going to remember that you have 50,000, 100 million in your bank account, or you have followers, you had 100 million followers. Nobody's going to care. It's about how you made them feel, what you said to them when you were alive, how you made them feel better about themselves. And that was something that I think, even just seeing how people talked about him, was all that he was about. So I just put that down into words, and so many people got back to me and said that, thank you for writing this down, because I didn't know how to say what I felt, but you said it for me. And that was such a big deal for me.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm actually reading this book, The Untethered Soul, by Mark Singer, I believe. I know his last name is Singer, I don't know if Mark, but yeah, The Untethered Soul.
What's your podcast playlist?
The Receipts podcast. It's this three London girls. It's a really, really good, kind of raunchy, but good podcast. Which other one? Jay Shetty. Stuck in the middle. But yeah, it's.
Is that for real? Or?
No, I just told you that I listened to some episodes. Don't do that to me. Don't put me on blast. Stuck in the middle. Jay Shetty. Who you actually remind me of, kind of, actually. Do you know Jay Shetty?
Like interview style wise, or like
interview
appearance?
style, but no, both actually. Both. Well, I shouldn't say that, but kind of. I think it's just your aura. Kind of reminds me of him. So do you know Jay Shetty?
Nah, I'm gonna look him up.
Yeah, he's huge on social media. So I just got into his podcast. It's called On Purpose. So he just talks about purpose. He interviews people as well on his podcast, and he talks about love a lot. He talks about finding your purpose. So it's one of my favorite podcasts. Every episode I listen to it about 3 times. It's really, really good.
What are you most curious about right now?
Oh gosh,
anything. Just.
Honestly, where I'm gonna be in 5 to 10 years. I'm kind of scared for it, but I'm curious to see, because it's a new decade starting in a few weeks, and 10 years ago I was just starting college, and I'm such a different person now than I was back then. So who knows what 10 more years is gonna be. I feel like every year I get to know myself better, and I'm loving more and more who I am. So in the place that I am now is good. I'm curious to see where I'll be in 10 years.
Yo, listen.
Yeah.
I'm curious and excited for you as well.
Thank you so much.
I think it's been a dope conversation.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like I really think your platform and our platform has a lot of similarities.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I'm proud of it, and it's been a pleasure having you.
It's been a pleasure.
I wish you number success. I've had a pleasure of speaking with Omobosola Olabisi.
Should I say it?
Yes, please.
Bosola Olabisi.
Thank you. She's a writer, published writer, and the founder of AfroKlash. Yeah. How can people connect with you?
So you can follow the AfroKlash page. You can follow my personal Instagram, Bossy Pants on Instagram. Yeah, mostly.
Yes, yes, man. Listen, if you enjoyed what you heard, enjoy what you watched, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the ringer as well so you can get updates every time we drop new content. SITM Podcast on all social media platforms. Join the conversation, leave a comment, use the hashtag SITM Podcast. Shout out to Maya in the building. She's the best. What's going on this weekend? I don't know. But listen, this is Stuck Middle Podcast. I'm Flex. Appreciate y'all for watching and listening. And we are out.
Peace.